All right, so now you can understand that importance of whether or not you do a blind study or a double blind study, because they can be very influential either way. So, oh, science and the human experience. I think this is very like, this is exactly why understanding here human experience is really important, because of the influence that we have on the way others feel, even if it is just the way in which we approach someone or something in regards to science or whatever the case may be. Expectations. It's real. Okay. All right. So you've done research before already, and your research you pulled from a place where you felt where the information came from, I hope, was expert testimony. Okay, so expert testimony is assuming somebody is an expert in a topic. This is where oftentimes we might not be, how do I say this? You ever go on TikTok or Instagram, any kind of social media, and somebody talks with a certain level of what feels like expertise on a topic, and you're like, absolutely. You take what they give you as a source of fact and truth, and this person is an expert. But oftentimes, unless they have some kind of degree or a lot of experience within this situation, they're not really experts. And I'll be honest, like I'll, watch videos and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, how does this person even know this? Like, how can I hold them as an expert? How would I know that? And that's something to be mindful as you move forward when you are gathering information. When you do that, who are you getting this information from? And could you call them experts? While experience is a great, validates people in some way, one person's experience does not speak for the whole. We've talked about that before. When we think of hasty generalizations, one does not assume the whole. And while one person's experience is very maybe impactful, truthful for them, that might not be the case for everyone. This is why when we talk about controlled experiments, it's really important that we make sure we don't get outside influences that might skew the results or influence the results in some way. I know it's hard to explain how those go together, but let's keep moving forward and I'll give you a little bit more on that. So, when we think about an expert, what is an expert? Somebody who presumably has training and practice and superior knowledge on a given topic. Somebody with a PhD, someone who's been, teaching the topic a long time, somebody who's really well versed. I don't know if you guys ever watch Ancient Aliens, and you know the guy who has the hair that just keeps growing every season, just keeps going high. He looks like he's slowly being abducted. Well, that guy, when you look at his degrees, none of his degrees have anything to do with his topic of being an expert in aliens. I don't know what the scientific study of that is. I know it, but it's someone over there. I know you're saying it and I can't hear you. But anyway, so he doesn't actually have a degree in it, but they use him as expert testimony. And that's the question. Why, of all the people, is he being chosen as expert testimony? Is it his passion for it? What's his experience and his expertise if he doesn't have a degree to be one to keep speaking on the topic? And we take him and like we see him, we go, oh, heck yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Why do we do that? Is it his confidence? Is it the fact that, the History Channel puts him in front of us and, gives us this assumption that he is an expert? What makes an expert? We often assume they have done the necessary inductive reasoning when we see them as an expert. My question to, what's his name? I forget his name with the big old hair. Our question is, what makes him the expert? We assume he's done all the research, the inductive reasoning to come to these conclusions. And what might that be? So, if we think about it as on a personal basis, as an instructor, not only do I have multiple, masters, I also go to lectures, I go to trainings. I've been teaching for 15 years plus, because of that, you could maybe call me an expert as a teacher, as an instructor, right? And why do I do the trainings? Why do I do this, all the time and keep going? Because I need the practice. I need to be involved. I need to keep doing what I need to do to be the expert, right? Times change, things change. What do I need to do to grow with that, to have more experience in what it is that I do? Okay. Does that make me an expert? I don't know if it makes me an expert, but it does make me very experienced in the things that I've done for a very long time, right? Is the practice, is the time what gives me the experience? Is that what makes me quote unquote an expert? Or do I need to go even further and the masters aren't enough? Maybe I need to get a doctorate, right? I don't know. I don't know what would necessarily be considered an expert in my particular position. But I do what I need to do consistently to keep making sure that I am as experienced as I can in what it is I do. Okay. Now, on a daily basis, we would take people, on a daily basis, we look to people who we feel are experts in things to give us the information that we need, and we kind of trust them. So, like, if my car breaks down, I take my car to a mechanic because a mechanic is an expert in that. But I wouldn't take the mechanic to my class to teach an English class because he might know a lot, but he might not know what I need him to teach you, right? I might not see him as the expert that I would need to bring to my class to lecture you, on a particular topic, right? Or how about maybe for you all might take your work to maybe a proofreader or one of the tutors because maybe they're more of an expert than you feel you are when it comes to reading and writing. What else? Let's see here. We call PG&E before we dig in our yards because we obviously don't want to hit a wire. Yeah, that would suck. And then we buy, like if you were to buy like a surfboard, you're buying a surfboard from, maybe the pros and the shapers because that's what they do daily. They know the ocean better than the majority of us know the back of our own damn hand, right? And so we take them as experts, or the same as if we were to talk to a pharmacist and say, what's your suggestion? They've been doing it a long time. It is their job to make sure that they know what they're doing. And so we would take their suggestion on like an allergy medicine, like what's the best thing to do? That's how you would use expert testimonies. Now, if we think about even wider than that, like we've gone past ourselves, we go to like, the mechanic, what goes beyond us when we think about the world around us and how we do the things that we do? Well, on a wider basis, we trust scientists. Majority of the time, we trust scientists, hoping that they're being as objective as possible when it comes to doing their research because they care about what happens. Like they actually care about the data. They're curious. Okay, so we have some trust in some scientists based on their bipartisan willingness to find the answers for humanity. That was a long-winded way of saying that. All right, or maybe we'll read editorials because they're written by someone who's been experienced in maybe political science and maybe affairs of the White House in the last 30 years, and so their editorial would be supporting their statement because of all the experience they've had before in what it is that they're doing. We put trials in the hands of judges and lawyers, hoping and trusting that they're going to follow not just the constitutions, but the laws that are for the betterment of society. And that's our hope, right? And we also trust maybe pilots to fly planes. They've been doing it a long time. They don't want to die. They don't want you to die. So we trust that they're experts in this, just like we trust, a brain doctor, a brain surgeon who's going to do that. See, they've been doing it a long time. We trust them as experts. That's what we're looking for here. We agree as a society to train people to have an expertise so we don't have to. Like the reason why I was trained the way I do and the way I keep training is because I want to be an expert for you so that when you come to me and ask me questions, you can trust the fact that I've been doing this a very long time and I have the answer for you, or that I have a method to my madness. When you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I do scaffolding. Work with me. I promise you at the end, you'll thank me. Right? Like we have trust in those who we give a certain authority to, that they're going to lead us in the right direction because they care about society. That's our hope when it comes to expert testimonies. The problem is, unfortunately, when it comes to expert testimonies, do they always have everyone's interest in mind? I don't know. Maybe one of the scientists is being paid by, the cigarette companies to try and prove that cigarettes don't cause lung cancer. And they get a lot of funding and a lot of money to prove that, right? Maybe that's how they work there. Maybe we have, parenting experts who come out there and tell you how to parent your kid. In fact, there was just that one, I'm sure you all saw it, there's a new Hulu documentary. Well, anyway, about how there was a mother who was like showing how to parent her kids, and she was very abusive, and it ended up becoming, I think she ended up in jail. It was like a huge deal, but she was considered a parenting expert. She had a lot of followers. Like when we follow influencers and we listen to what these people are saying, you know, they tell us what we're supposed to be doing, and we listen sometimes blindly because we want an answer. We want a quick answer. We want an easy answer. And that person's TikTok popped up right at that time. So we listen to them and we take them as expert testimony. But are they really experts? Are what they doing healthy, right? There was a time when Bill Cosby had a parenting book. We all know what happened to Bill Cosby, right? So we're having to ask ourselves, who are these people that we're getting this expert information from, It's kind of like when you're trying to explain to somebody, like, you have to call IT and you're like, oh, my computer's doing this thing. And IT's like, okay, tell me what it's doing. And you're like, I don't even know. I'm not an expert. I'm trying to tell you who's an expert, right? So there's a miscommunication there. Or even sometimes when we talk to an insurance company, if you've ever had to talk to an insurance company, God bless you, because it's not easy. Sometimes they will make a snap judgment on a claim based on keywords that you use. We reach out to them because they're supposed to be the experts, but the problem is sometimes maybe, they're also following a certain protocol and, hearing certain words. And if you've ever had that happen, I've gotten into a car wreck and I remember having to talk to an insurance agent, and that was shady. I did not like that at all. But that's the thing. They're supposed to be the experts, but they're the experts in what? Getting money for them or getting money for you? Most likely it's for them, which is why they are what they are, right? So the whole point I'm trying to get here is, who are we looking to as experts and why? And are they really the experts? All right. That's just kind of a part of the critical thinking skills on how are we deciding who's an expert. God bless, Jenny McCarthy. She went on a very big, a big movement of like anti-vaxxing based on her personal experience. The problem was there wasn't enough backing. And I don't know enough. I shouldn't say, I'm not going to say either side, but is an actress who might not understand all the science behind it, who had a certain situation, is she the expert in this? She had a personal experience. Does science back that up? Does using a controlled study consistently, is that helping to validate her point? Right? So that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Like, who are we using as experts that are leading the charge in the decisions that we make in our lives? And are we being mindful of that? Potentially things like that could be destructive, right? I don't know. To each their own decision on that one, right? Okay. Other problems with expert testimony, are they really the experts in that specific field? If as a English instructor, I go on and on about something about, I guess, math, and I'm trying to teach you math, but I'm not a math instructor. Are you going to take, while I am a teacher, would you take me as an expert testimony, even though my degree is in English, right? I've been teaching a very long time. It's very possible that, I could teach math. But would I be considered an expert in that? Maybe as a teacher, but not necessarily a math teacher. I don't know. All right. And then how up to date is this person's expertise, right? Say they, do have a lot of information on something, but maybe that information has been, unfortunately, either proven wrong or expanded upon. This is why I keep doing training, to make sure I'm always like making sure I'm doing the best that I can all the time. It's a lot of work, but I love you guys, so I'm willing to do it. Okay. And then the question is, are the people who are doing these experiments, are they unbiased? There's the movie Thank You for Smoking, which I usually show in class. I'm not doing it. I pulled back on the videos for this particular class, but one of them was the cigarette company was actually paying a research company to prove that cigarettes did not cause cancer. So again, when we're talking about, is the researcher unbiased? How do we know they're unbiased? What are they doing to prove that they are unbiased, right? Who's funding them? Always think about that. Who's funding you to say what, right? And then if that's the case, when we talk about controlled experiments, would other experts agree? Would they be able to do the same thing over and over again? And other experts who are, with the same degree and the same whatevers, are they going to agree with this particular person's statement? So, all right. People who we often think of as experts, we sometimes create influencers. Like, we follow them, we like them, we keep giving them, all the thing that makes them want to keep doing what they're doing, and we feed into it. And so that's influencer can become then the expert, whether it's makeup, whether it's clothes, whether it's, dialogue on politics or science or whatever the case may be. Like, we actually create them. Sometimes our friends' posts, we hold them as experts in a thing, maybe just because they're our friend, or maybe we like what they posted, right? Because they agreed with us, and because they agreed with us, we felt, oh, that's right. So you repost it. Okay. Sometimes we don't think critically about this. Sometimes we repost it just because it aligns with our values. Is it correct? Is it right? Is it factual? A lot of times it's not always. We just repost it because it aligns with the things that we believe in, okay? That's something to be mindful of too. When you get these memes that come through that say all these facts, where did it come from? Who created that meme? Like, we don't know the origin, so how do we know the accuracy of the meme? So really be careful of reposting these things. And when I say memes, I'm not talking about funny, goofy things. I'm talking about science or political things. If you're reposting it, where's the origin of this stuff? And how are you proving whether or not this is accurate? Or are you just reposting it because it aligns with the things that you believe in? That's how oftentimes misinformation gets going, how it keeps moving, okay? Again, this is like TikTokers, right? We definitely feed into TikTokers. We repost, and we get them the likes, and we get them the views, and they become experts in doing that. Maybe there's a well-known pundit that is out there that makes a statement, and you're like, yep, and so that they become an expert on a thing, even if they aren't really, academically the expert in that particular topic. Maybe it's somebody that we follow on a YouTube, or somebody who has a blog. Do people even do blogs anymore? My notes are getting old. Okay, and then maybe it's an actual respected expert like Neil deGrasse, right? A lot of people really follow Neil deGrasse because of his experience, right? Like, a lot of things that he's done in his life and all his research, you could probably call him, an expert. Oftentimes we also use opinion leaders, not necessarily fact leaders, not scientific people, but sometimes, opinions, or comedians or politicians or whatever. Like people, I don't remember, it's probably like a Bob's Burgers episode or something, or maybe Big Bang Theory. Those are like my two watches right now. One of them's like, oh, well, Oprah told me to. Oh, whatever Oprah tells me to read, whatever Oprah tells me to buy, I don't know if that's Oprah's as much of an influence now as she was a couple of years back, but she was one. Donald Trump is a very big influencer for people. John Oliver, I don't know if he is as much as like Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert is a very big opinion leader. Him and Jon Stewart, they make the political commentary and jokes and stuff. And then I have this one person, Ryan of Ryan Toys Review. I don't even know if he's a thing anymore, but he was considered an expert in reviewing how toys worked. Can you imagine? You're like a kid and you're making money for your parents by playing with toys? Where are we? Anywho, all right. Okay, so think about, and we're going to be getting into advertising in a little bit, but think about advertising on social media, any kind of social media. Think about how, well, this has changed a little bit since my notes here, but they're no longer targeting you individually, but they are. Does that make sense? Like, They do, because they still do the spider thing. Like if you like a thing or you go shopping, all of a sudden you see it in your Instagram. So they do target you personally. So I should probably change that. But often what they do is they target opinion leaders. They target people who sell it to you as an ad. There is a dancing couple. They just got married recently. I forget their names. You probably have seen them 100 times. But they do ads, but they do the ads as like the skit or the dance or the song. Let's see here. Huddy Bistro is one that I follow, and they'll do the same. And that's how they get paid to do what they do, is they'll do a skit based around Huddy Bistro is like a restaurant skit thing, and it's one guy who plays all the characters. It's hilarious. But one time he did like an ad on a pen, right? You know, like in restaurants you lose pens. Oh, I lost my favorite pen, but they used it as an ad. That's how they target you. Not necessarily individually, but they use these particular opinion leaders or influencers to create these ads to kind of get you to like, oh, that sounds cool. Or like the Kardashians. I hate to use the Kardashians as an example, but oftentimes they will be paid sponsors that, you know, share maybe dieting secrets and things like that. Or maybe they're paid to give their opinion on politics in some way. Everybody's paid now. You show your feet, you get paid, right? Like, and that's the problem now when we think about expert testimony. When I say follow the money, it's always like, what are they getting paid to do and why? Because people have to make a living. And if their living is being an influencer, they're being influenced. And what are they being influenced by? Especially when it comes to politics, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know how that works. That's not my life. I just sit in my office and tell stories. So anyway, that being the case, when we think about these advertisings and the influences of these influencers and these experts, how are they giving us this information, and what does that look like? All right. And so sometimes you'll even think about how we might have opinion leaders just by plucking them out of obscurity and giving them credibility. I think a lot about Flo from Progressive. There was not a thing, she was not a whatever, or Jake from State Farm. It was just these random characters, but now they kind of use them as credibility throughout the whole show. In fact, a show. That's how ads are now. They're like shows, right? But we think about Flo and all the characters in the Progressive and how each one of them has their own little storylines. And it's because of that they actually create a type of opinion leader, like expertise. Like, oh, ask Flo. She knows. She's the insurance expert. How the hell is Flo an insurance expert, right? Like when you really kind of dig deep, you're like, you got me on that one. Okay, so anyway, just something to think about. So I guess the question here is we're asking ourselves, who are we listening to? Well, we're looking up research and we're trying to find this information. What are we looking for? Look back at those controlled experiments. Who's doing controlled experiments? Is that where we're getting our information? Always go back to the data. Go back to the source. Go back to the core. Go back to the thing. If you're looking and reposting political memes or things with statistics, look it up. Find out, is that true? What is the accuracy of these? Who are we even listening to? Are we just mindlessly, oh, I like that because it made me feel good and I believe in it, and shoving it forward? Right? Like, what are we really doing here? Are we that mindless that we've become robots? What's that game, that play? It's like an RPC player, right? Like just doing, is that what we are right now? Are we even listening? Are we even paying attention? Are we even thinking critically? That's what I'm trying to get you to do. That was the whole point of this whole flippin' 50-minute blah blahs. All right, so the question is, who are we listening to and why? Who are we listening to and why? Can we validate their opinions based on their experience and training? Right? That's the question. Is someone successful at a thing, and because they're successful, we think, oh, we should listen to them? Or if we think they're successful, did they really go from the boots up, or did they have maybe, grandparents or family who gave them money to start the business to do the thing? Is that the expert we're listening to? I don't know. I have no idea. This is a you thing, but just be mindful of who you feel an expert might be based on your understanding of who they are and the research you do on them. And then what is behind their motives? Everyone's motive, let's be honest, majority of the time is just to survive, whether it's to get money, or to get through the day. So we have to ask ourselves, when these people are being experts, are they experts because it's truly what they do? That's what their degree is in. That's the science behind them. You think about maybe like park rangers and stuff. If you go to a park and a ranger is giving you information, like, why would you listen to them? They went through a lot of training and a lot of work, and it's really hard to get a federal job. So someone who is in that position, who is that ranger, knows their stuff and they care, right? Because federal workers don't get much. State workers don't. I'm a state worker in another position somewhere here in town at Chico State, and you don't get paid a lot, but you really have to be an expert in that zone, in that area, in order to be in that position. Like, it's not easy. So then we have to ask ourselves, how hard did they have to work to get there? Again, whether or not you're a pilot, if you're a scientist, like, a lot of times there's a lot of work, a lot of experience, and a lot of education that goes into this. Who are your experts? Who are you listening to? And again, sometimes we might have to pull out the thing that makes us go, oh, you're saying what I want to hear, and paying attention to listening to what you need to hear. That's the point of listening to experts. What are they trying to tell you? Yeah, so think about that. Anyway, okay, so the goal here is, if you're going to be listening to experts, I want you to listen to the experts who care about the public, who legitimately care about the well-being of others. What does that look like? What kind of actual scientific backing do they have if they're going to make that statement about your health and well-being, right? Or if they're a politician making a statement, do they legitimately have your best interest in mind? Or is there a monetary thing? It's always monetary. That's what politics is all about. Just kidding. I don't know. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. Right? But that's reality. That is the reality. What is the motive behind what people are trying to say and do? I don't know. You're going to have to do the research. So, all right. Anyway, go forth. Good luck. And I'm excited to see what you come up with your final assignments.